the investors want. That's something I care to know about.
Okay. That's an interesting one. So, thank you, Finn, for the contribution. So we'll move quickly into it. First off, we'll have to run through the anatomy of a pitch deck. First off, every pitch deck has to at least contain some basics. Every pitch deck, let me repeat this again. I know a lot of people make their pitch deck to be maybe 20 pages, 100 pages, and whatever, right? But there are some basics every pitch deck should contain. And if the basics are not on your pitch deck, forget it, you've already start losing, right? So number one is the problem statement. Your pitch deck should convey the problem statement, right? And then the solution to that problem. This is where you have to position your business or the offering you are providing as the best solution for that problem you've presented. Then number three is the market opportunity. Every investor wants to see that whichever problem they are investing in or whichever market they are investing in is a growing market. You cannot go and get tech that has to do with maybe feature phones that they've phased out and you're expecting an investor to invest in that. It has to be a growing market that has future. If you are talking about growing market, of course, we talk about AI and all of those things, machine learning and all of those things. So I'm not saying that these are the only growing markets. I'm just giving an instance. So I've mentioned problem statement, solution, market opportunity, then the business model. Does your business model beat other business models in the market? So we'll be going deeply into this. I and Abdul will be going deeply into this shortly. I'm just trying to list out what pitch deck should contain at the minimum. These are what your pitch deck should contain. So the business model, that's number 4. Then number 5, traction. So the traction could be download. In fact, the traction need not be the paid users. It could be maybe, let's say, 5K people on a WhatsApp group waiting for your business to be launched. These are people that are ready to pay for your products. So they need not be people who have bought from you or people who have downloaded your app. Let's say you are still at the pre-seed stage, you don't have your products yet. Your traction could be maybe 1,000 people who have signed up on your landing page to use your product. So those are the examples of traction. Then your team. One thing we'll be mentioning very well on the aspect of team, there is what we call founders market fit, which we've mentioned webinars, and we'll be speaking about it today again. The founders have to provide or show that they have the expertise to solve the problem that they are proposing to solve. Then the last slide should be the ask or the closing slide. So are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so I think we should get started with the problem statement. I don't know whether you have any additions or something to say about the problem statement.
Yeah, I have a few things to add. So, I think the way Pascal just kind of went off the high level minimum requirements that's in the pitch deck, but I would add a couple of things to that based on, my personal experience with as being a founder myself, as well as hearing lots of pitches from other founders. There are a few additional things that I like to see in a pitch deck. So we're going to be talking about, kind of the standard, what you typically see in the pitch deck, that you can get from many different resources out there. But I want to add to that by saying some of the things that I have learned to add to pitch decks, as well as what I'd like to see in pitch decks. So that's to add a little bit of extra to what Pascal was saying.
Okay, so in the aspect of problem statements, the problem statements in a pitch deck should clearly define the problem you are solving. It should show the pain points or the challenges your target market is facing. I think we should, can we display the pitch deck
I can share it.
sample
I
that
can,
we have?
yeah, I can share it. I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Hold on one second.
Okay, so while he's working on that, as I was saying, the problem statement has to explain in details. Now, you have to use lesser words. If you can explain what you are doing in um less amounts of words and use more of pictures when you are preparing your pitch deck, investors would appreciate that a lot. It's not a class note. I've seen a lot of pitch decks. People are putting so many words, like you want me to read all of those words. Nobody has that time. Just capture the data you need. I don't know what I'm trying to see if I have a sample pitch deck here that so, but then if you guys have a sample pitch deck that you want us to tear down today, you can drop it on the WhatsApp group. After we've gone through the lesson, we want to tear down at least one pitch deck from anybody here. So if you have any pitch deck you want us to dissect, you can send it to the page. But then for the problem statement, it has to show the pain points or challenges your market is facing. If there are numbers to show this, for example, let's say 5 million people they deliver stillborn baby every year and blah blah blah. Like if there are data or real life examples to illustrate the problem, you are expected to use those data to pass your message across. So what to include in your problem statement? Number one is a compelling narrative or real life example. If there are real life examples, for example, you've had to face a challenge. We've seen people who built a startup based on a personal experience. For example, someone's uncle or aunt or family member maybe died because of heart attack, and then the person went on to develop maybe a solution that can help someone sort out their heart attack issue when they are alone, or maybe no one is closer to them at that point. I think I've seen a pitch deck around that. So what a particular solution that can help someone handle their heart attack when someone else is not close to them. So that's an example of a real life example to illustrate your problem. So if you have a personal experience relating to that solution, you can use it. Then two, data points or statistics to validate the significance of the issue. Earlier on, I mentioned statistics. For instance, 5 million people deliver stillborn baby every year, maybe in Africa or in Nigeria or wherever, due to this specific issue. Please don't go and quote wrong data, because investors will know. Okay, let me even say it. It's likely that whichever investor that is investing in your business, they have a background in that sector. Let's say you are pitching a health tech, your investor is likely an investor within that space and who know all those data. It's not like those days we did some plays when we were still in law school, right? When we cook up some cases and we think our lecturers won't know. But these guys, they know. They know. So you cook up cases. Maybe when you're writing the exam in the exam hall, you don't remember some cases. You just cook up one case. You think they are teaching and they are also going to courts, right? So don't just go and cook up any statistics and you think the investors will know. Even if when they are not in your field, a simple Google search will give them what they need to know. So make sure you are using the right data and possibly add the reference at the closing part of your pitch deck if possible. Of course, if you are going to quote or World Health Organization, of course you are going to put somewhere that you are quoting UN or World Health Organization. So best practice is when you are preparing your problem statement, keep it simple and relatable. Some people use story. For example, I think we are still going to deal very deep about story, how to use story in presenting your pitch deck, right? So, for example, some people will use a picture and will be like, this picture is Amina, and Amina is a sister to, let's say, Umaru, who lost his life due to heart attack and blah blah blah. If you can use such things to reduce the words you use storytelling to convey your message. Best practices, keep it simple and relatable. Avoid overloading with excessive data. So that's for problem statements. Do you have any questions on problem statements? If you have any questions, just send it through the comment section.
Yeah, and can I jump in here? Can I jump in here real quick,
Okay.
Scott, before you move off this slide? First thing regarding the promise statements, it's everything that you got, everything that you said, absolutely is everything you said. And then, what I've found from my experience is that, sometimes it helps to state that in a certain kind of format, right? So, like you said, make sure you're addressing the key problem that the audience is facing. Then also, like you said, why do they have that problem and who is affected by that problem? But the thing that I found helpful to help people keep it short and concise is to use a particular format. And so you can see in the slide that we're sharing, you see format would be the job to be done and the pain of doing that today, right? So an example can be today doing data analytics is very expensive and time consuming, right? So the job to be done is data analytics, and the pain is it's expensive and it's time consuming, right? So it helps if you can address the questions that Pascal is talking about that we're sharing on the screen, but the format of how you address those questions is also important, right? Because you don't want to be too wordy, right? And you don't want to be off topic. You want to be concise and to the point. And so I found using this particular format that I'm sharing um, helps keep you concise and to the point when you're demonstrating your problem statement. And then also, I want to go back, Pascal, just a question for you. We have about 34 minutes. How much of the slide do you want to get through in this 34 minutes?
How much what? I didn't hear that.
How much of the sample pitch deck do you want to get through in the next 33 minutes?
I think we can just go through one pitch deck due to the time. Then during the workshop, the one that we hold on Saturday, the part two, we can have a peer-to-peer review.
Okay. So I want to back up then, right? So let me back up and let me start from the beginning of this particular sample pitch deck, right? This is the template. So we talked about starting with the problem statement, but you want to introduce your company before you really jump into the problem, right? You want to introduce your company and what you propose to do with your company. And so you can see on that first slide here would be obviously the name of your company. And then, I'm a fan of, again, a particular format, right? So if you're a company, you want to be able to demonstrate what your company does very quickly and very concisely, right? So I like the format that you see here, company name, and you can say, whoever your customer may be, your audience may be, and then whatever the outcome happens to be, right? So you use this format. We help customers get certain outcomes through however you do that. So using that format is a proven way to concisely communicate the value that your company brings to whatever your target audience is. So that's the format. And then, so the next thing that me personally, I like to see in text, I call it the wow factor, right? This is something that's less common. If you do any kind of research on pitch decks or what have you, you probably won't see something like this in the information you find. This is something that I've been using over the years and that I like to see. And so I'm adding this in here. And so it's the wow factor, right? What's the most impressive thing about your company right now at the time that you're pitching? And this is important because if you're pitching to an angel investor or a VC or anyone is a regular investor in companies, they see a lot of slides, right? If you're pitching to a VC, depending upon how big that VC is, they can see dozens and dozens of pitch decks every single week. And so they like to go through pitch decks really fast. And if you have a wow slide right up front, you can communicate really in one slide the most impressive thing about your company. And it holds their interest and makes them want to continue looking at your deck. And so the wow slide I like to have, really up front. And it's really what's the most impressive thing about your company right now at the time you're pitching. So that's wow. The next one would be why you. Pascal talked about team, and you're going into more detail about the team later in your pitch deck. But again, if you're an angel investor or a VC, you're looking at dozens and dozens of pitch decks on a regular basis. Is if you can say right up front why you are the right person or the right team to do this, it also holds their interest and makes them want to continue looking at the rest of your materials. And so right up front, you want to say why you got the wow factor that you just talked about and why you will continue delivering wow factors with this company in the future. And so within the first 3 slides, you've told the investor what the company is, what they do, the most impressive thing about the company, and why you are the right person or team to continue doing this. And so these are a couple of the things that over the years I've learned to look for and like to see index. So you won't see this talk about too often if you do research. These are a couple of things that I specifically like to look for. Then you would go into your problem statement that Pascal was just talking about, right? And so you start to get into your more typical structure of a pitch deck that you commonly see out there. And then after the problem, again, this is something that I like to see, is something that's called a status quo slide. It comes before the solution slide. Typically, you would see a pitch deck with problem, and then the very next slide would be the solution. But I like to put a slide in between that, right? And that's called the status quo slide, because it could be companies out there today trying to solve the problem that you're trying to solve. And you want to demonstrate why that doesn't work well, right? And then you can talk about why your solution works better. So it provides more context to the solution that you're going to talk about later. So the status quo slide is really about what you have observed is happening today for people trying to solve the problem that you are trying to solve. So I mentioned, as an example, data analytics is expensive and pain. And so you can say, well, today people use software to try to solve that problem. And you can talk about, people using software to try to solve that problem. And you can talk about why it doesn't work that well. And that would be the status quo. I'm going to pause here for a second and see if anybody has any questions on that, because this is a pretty new aspect. And so if anybody have any questions, I'll take some right now. Cool.
So if you have any question, put in your question in the comment section, or you can indicate so that we allow you to ask your questions.
Yes. I know I talk fast sometimes, so feel free to raise your hand and tell me to slow down or repeat something if I'm talking too fast. Looks like Miss Agnes is raising her hand. Go ahead, Miss Agnes.
Hi. We always get told to change our pitch decks, but it's always the same thing. So I really appreciate this. It really just allows us to focus on the things that make us different. So we always know that. And we probably put it in the middle of the information of the slide, so we don't actually highlight it. So I'm really appreciating this. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. That's what we try to do. We try to add some value here. So thank you for saying that. Okay. So let's move on to the next slide, which is your solution. And so this is a very common slide. Like I said before, you typically see it immediately following the problem slide. But, I like to have the status quo slide in between, because it makes your solution it makes your solution stand out that much more. And so when you're starting to construct your solution slide, there are some fundamental elements that you need to think about, right? So you need to make sure you're able to clearly explain your product or your service that's providing the solution. You need to make sure that it clearly demonstrates that it solves the problem, right? Because I've seen a lot of decks where they talk about a solution, but it's hard to connect the solution they're presenting to the problem they talked about earlier, right? So you got to make sure that your solution, is quickly identifiable to the problem that you previously mentioned. And then, as a thought process, make sure you're thinking about how to highlight what's innovative or what's different about the problem that you're presenting, right? And again, having that status quo slide right before this helps you do that, right? Because it has presented the status quo, how it's happening today, and that should make it a little easier for you to present your solution as a differentiation to that. And so these three elements are things that you want to think about and process before you put anything on the slide, right? These are things that you're thinking about, right? How do I explain this clearly? How do I make sure it comes across as being unique, and am I making sure that I'm highlighting that it's different? And again, I'm a fan of kind of a format templates, right? Or formatting formulas to help you be concise with your statements. And so when it's time to actually put on the page what your solution is, the format is we do X, Y, and Z, right? So in keeping with that data analytics example, you can say we do analytics. I'm just making this up. We do analytics on an on-demand basis in the cloud so that it's faster and less expensive, right? And that's it. One line. We do whatever you do, but that whatever you do part needs to be clear, and it needs to explain, it needs to communicate why you're different than everybody else. Any questions on that? Any comments? Okay, Pascal, you want to talk about this market opportunity slide? Pascal, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You want to talk about this market opportunity slide?
Okay, let me talk about that. Okay, so when you're talking about the market opportunity, one thing you have to bear in mind is that you need to sort of give a glimpse of what the market is about. In fact, most times, what people quote out as the total addressable market don't directly concern investors. What the investors are concerned about most times is the serviceable obtainable market, which is the direct market that your startup can impact. Let's say, for instance, you are building a product to, let's say you are building the money point of Africa, right? Realistically, the only market money points can access at its beginning stage is the market they can reach. That means people that are trying to withdraw or people that need their service locally versus them trying to capture the total addressable market globally, which they are likely not going to use. Here, it's very important that you use data and infographics as much as you can. Of course, you put the total addressable market, maybe globally, the fintech market for people trying to withdraw with POS is this amount. Then the serviceable addressable market is this, but then the market you are addressing, which is the serviceable obtainable market, is this. So this is where you need to pay special attention to the serviceable obtainable market and how you intend to reach these people. I'm sure Abdul can add more onto that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. From a VC perspective, I always have a issue when founders talk about how big the market is going to be, how big the market is, and that they're going to conquer the entire market, right? Because that's very unrealistic, and it just doesn't come across well. So, like Pascal said, you have to, it's okay to talk about maybe what that total addressable market is, but your focus really should be, the serviceable, obtainable market, what's realistic for your company to achieve. And I think, one of the best ways to do this is you can talk about the long-term opportunity, right? But you should also talk about what you're focused on first, because every new company typically has a go-to-market strategy. And your go-to-market strategy may involve only trying to capture some small amount of the serviceable market just as your go-to-market strategy for your initial focus, but your long-term focus could be a lot bigger. And so it's important for you to state that in this market opportunity slide, right? And the way you do that is you can talk about the long-term opportunity, but you should also talk about what you're focused on capturing as your first opportunity, go-to-market opportunity. So that's it for market opportunity. Any questions on that? I hear a bunch of beeps. So let's see. So we got a couple of hands raised.
There you go. Can you talk there?
All right. Hi. Good morning, Pascal and Abdul. Thank you so much for hosting this. Okay, my question specifically goes to, I do agree the fact where your sum has to be very well defined, but sometimes you do get to meet some investors who say you're not ambitious enough in terms of if your sum is, of course, starting with the smallest unit of the market you can capture, but it's not basically giving them very clear understanding of how big that market could become with you, right? Because basically the sum is showing how much you could execute to capture that market. Sometimes you have pushback from investors saying your market is not big enough or cannot give them the venture return multiples they're looking out for or calculating. How do you present it in that slide or in that place while you're talking about the market you're focused on capturing, but essentially how you can return the multiples? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I can answer that. The first part of that answer is you have to know who you're talking to and make sure you're talking to someone that's a fit for you, right? If you are talking to a VC, if you're pitching a VC, but whatever you're pitching is like a lifestyle business, your market opportunity is not going to match up with what a VC is looking for. So the first part of that is you have to make sure that whoever you're pitching to is in alignment to your business. That's number one. Number two, so assuming the person you're pitching to is in alignment with your business, how do you communicate the market opportunity in the best way? And I think the best way to do that is you can talk about the long-term opportunity, which is the bigger opportunity, as your long-term goal. But you can say, we're first focused on addressing this part of that market, right? So you can talk about that you're starting out with the focus on a particular part of the overall market as your entry strategy. But your long-term strategy is to gradually start to address the broader market year after year or quarter after quarter. And so that does two things. It can demonstrate your initial focus, which could be, concise and, very narrow because it's your initial focus, your go-to-market strategy. But you can also discuss that in the context of the overall market. We're starting small here, and then we're going to grow to address the rest of the total addressable market, the rest of the serviceable market. Does that answer your question?
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, how do you balance market opportunity and potential investors on a B2B and a B2C product? So there is how many users would likely use this product, and then there's how many corporates like universities would likely use a product like my product. So how do you address that in market opportunity? Do you have, but I'm thinking multiple, previously we just did students and probably state numbers. You have an idea of institutions and that can come on that. How do you address that when you have both B2B and B2C? How do you talk about market opportunity?
Yeah, you talk about it the same way, right? You just have two different kind of data sets to talk about it from, right? So if you are targeting B2C and B2B, then there's really two ways to do that. I think I prefer to introduce them separately, right? A percentage of, you're looking to capture a percentage of the B2B side of the market, and you're looking to capture a percentage of the B2C side of the market. And you have to be clear about both. And so I personally like to see them highlighted separately, right? As a B2B opportunity and a separate B2C opportunity, because more than likely, you're also going to have separate marketing strategies and customer acquisition strategies for each one of those, right? Because they're different sets of customers. So you would have almost two versions of this market opportunity slide, one that talks about the B2C part and one that talks about the B2B part. That's how I personally like to see it, because it's clearer that way. But that's just my personal preference. I think it's more confusing if you try to combine them.
Oh, that answers the question, Finn. Okay.
Yes, that does.
Okay. So we can continue.
So the next slide would be unit economics. And so this is another one of my personal preferences that I added to this sample pitch deck. Again, if you do research out there about a typical pitch deck, you might not see unit economics, but I like to see unit economics because for two reasons. It lets me know that the founder has thought about it. It lets me know that the founder has thought about how they can build the business and acquire customers in a profitable manner, right? If you're not thinking about how to build a business or acquire customers in a profitable manner, then your business is not going to be profitable, right? You got to think about it first, and you have to think about it at a product level. And so I like to see unit economics because it demonstrates the product level profitability of the company, right? It's not some big, gigantic financial statement that I have to wade through, right? It's very simple. It costs my company $1 to acquire a customer, and each customer is paying $15. So my unit economics is $14 profitability for every unit that I sell, right? That's very clear. It's very plain, and it demonstrates profitability at the product or service level. This is something that you may not see when you Google pitch decks, right? But it's something that is very important because it demonstrates how the company will make money. Any questions on unit economics? Okay, Pascal, we got about 6 minutes left. What do you want to cover for the next 6 minutes? And I have a hard stop at the top of the hour too.
Okay, so I think let's cover the basics. Let's finish up the remaining part of the pitch and then take questions.
Okay, so let's do traction real quick. And so just to let everybody know, this workshop is a 2-part workshop, right? Because we know we're not going to have enough time to do all this in one workshop. And so the next part of the workshop is Saturday, right, Pascal? This Saturday?
Yes, it's on Saturday.
Yeah. So part 2 of this workshop is next Saturday. So we got 5 minutes left. Why don't we just end on questions? Does anybody else have any questions or anything that we've talked about so far today? Any questions? Any comments? Okay. All right. So go ahead with your question.
Thank you. It's just to follow up on the presentation. I wasn't able to be part of the presentation from the beginning. Is it possible to get a copy of the recording and the presentation today?
Yes, there will be a recording made available that we will send out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the insights.
You're welcome. So 5 minutes, I'll just quickly give a highlight on the traction slide. I'm not going to try to cover it fully. We only have 5 minutes left, but I'm just going to say traction is very important. Traction is how you demonstrate that your business is making progress, right? Any investor wants to see that the business is making progress. And so your traction slide is used to demonstrate that. And so you want to talk about what milestones you achieved so far. They could be revenue milestones. Revenue milestones are always great, right? Because everybody likes to see that the company is bringing in money, right? So revenue milestones are always great. Development milestones, that's okay, but development doesn't equal revenue, right? Revenue is king. If you can show revenue traction, that's number one. If you're pre-revenue, then it's okay to show development traction, but you should also try to show some type of customer traction, right? Whether it's revenue or users on a wait list or something like that, right? You do not want your traction to be 100% focused on product traction. You want to make sure you have revenue traction, if you have revenue, or some type of traction that represents that users want to use your product or service. And if you're already an operating business, then maybe you can use case studies or testimonials, but that's normally reserved for businesses that are much further along in their life cycle. And again, I like formatting prescriptions. And so the format should be, a short graph with maybe 4 bullet points at most. So we can end here. We can pick up on traction part 2 of our session this upcoming Saturday. And I think that covers it for now, Pascal.
Okay. Thank you very much, Abdul, for making our time. Abdul normally doesn't join us because of his busy schedule, but it's good to have our managing partner here join us. So for the part 2 holding on Saturday, we would like everybody to join the group and vote. Considering the fact that Saturday is a very unique day, especially for Africans who go for parties and all of those things on Saturday, we want you guys to partake in the vote to choose the time for Saturday, whether we should still leave it for 11 a.m. or maybe 2 p.m. or maybe another time slot. So the highest time slot that gets the highest votes, we'll pick it and schedule it for that time. So everybody use the link in the description part of this video, the description part of this session to join the WhatsApp group where we will have to vote on the dates for Saturday. So everyone, thank you once again. Thank you for joining this session. I remember that on Saturday, that's where we'll be doing more of the work. We'll be having a peer-to-peer review of your pitch deck. Once we are done running through the outline of the pitch deck, we'll be tearing down some pitch decks and then have you review the pitch deck of fellow founder. So that's where you get hands-on experience on how to build your own pitch deck from ground up. So don't miss Saturday's session. And on Saturday too, we'll be speaking about the opportunity we told you guys. We'll be picking top 10 startups that will be working with us in securing funding this year. So Saturday's session is not a session you want to miss. Osaro, let's take one question from Osaro before we close. Osaro, pick one. 5 seconds.
5 seconds.
I know you very well, so make it fast. I know if they leave, you can speak for an hour. Just make it quick.
I was basically what I was asking, you've already answered the question. I wanted to ask if we'll be able to view other pitch decks because I've already sent my pitch deck, so everybody has viewed mine. So I was wondering if I could see how because I still like learning as much. I have learned some other part of things too.
Okay, don't worry, we'll do that on Saturday. So you guys should go to the WhatsApp group now and vote for the time for Saturday's session. So once again, thank you everyone and thank you for creating our time for joining this session. Looking forward to seeing you guys on Saturday. Bye everyone.
Bye.